Good Sunday morning. My name is Jaden Jefferson, and welcome to Community Focus. We are still counting down to the November general election, which will be a big day here in Ohio, and hopefully turnout for that is really high because it's important that everyone's getting out to vote. So joining me is one of the candidates that will be on the ballot in that during that election. He's Joshua Williams. He is a Republican candidate running for Ohio's 41st House District. Good morning.
Good morning.
So since our last conversation, a lot has just changed and has really became an issue since we last talked, whether it was abortion, gun rights, inflation, which is something that has quite literally made a come up. So what are your stances on all of these different issues?
So we can go one at a time. I mean, abortion now has come back to the states, which it should have been in the first place. So it's going to be a big issue here coming up. Now that substantive due process has been struck down by the federal courts as it relates to abortion, it's been sent back to the states, which, as a constitutional law professor, we always believed that that was the right call, and to see a Supreme Court give back part of its power back to the states was refreshing. So now we get to see state legislatures listen to the people. The people's voices are going to be more amplified. I mean, the current state law here in the state of Ohio is the heartbeat bill, which gives some rights to women to be able to choose what they do with their body. I mean, I'm endorsed by the Right to Life Action Coalition of Ohio. I'm a pro-life guy. I believe life begins at conception. Any intentional act to end a baby's life in the womb is wrong. But as a legislator, I believe in compromise at the same time. Right now, the compromise is the heartbeat bill that's currently the legislation. And I will continue to try to protect the lives of unborn babies inside the womb, especially since, minorities, black people in general, only account for about 13% of the population here in the state of Ohio, but we account for 48% of all abortions, especially here in Lucas County. So black babies are dying in the womb at record numbers here, and I think we have to be able to provide reasonable alternatives for individuals and be able to put individuals in better positions to be able to raise children and give them better hope for a better future. And I believe I have policies that I can put in place that can really give people that hope for a better future.
It's been an issue for a while, but we've really seen it be amplified over the last year, and that has been the conversation regarding guns. America, one of the most notorious countries when it comes to those mass shootings that we see that happen repeatedly, and it seems like nothing changes. There have been some changes on the federal level with regard to this issue, but in Ohio, Governor Mike DeWine had signed into law some legislation that would allow teachers to carry in the classroom if that's something that school districts opted into. So why in the supposed land of the free are we even having to still have this conversation? And how do you hope to address this issue so that everyone's safe and we can have that balance between people that are supportive of everyone having a right to carry while also promoting safety?
Right. So, I mean, we have a constitutional right to carry inside the United States, both as a federal right and as a state right. So, individuals that are law abiding have a right to carry a firearm, protect their home, protect their lives outside of their home, protect their loved ones. So, it's a competing interest between safety and the individual right. So, the statute and the law that was signed in by Governor DeWine was a great piece of legislation, and here's the reason why. I'm always in support of the decisions being made closer and closer to home. So now it's before we saw an example of the federal court giving authority back to the states. This is an example of a governor giving the authority back to local school boards. Now, the governor's not going to dictate whether or not teachers are allowed to carry guns inside of your local schools. Instead, they're going to give the authority to your local school board. That means the individual parents inside of that school district, their voices are going to be amplified. They get to go inside of those school board meetings and let their voices be heard. At the ballot boxes, your voices are going to be amplified on who you select, who you elect to your local school boards. If parents in a certain area want to have certain individuals inside of that school district carry firearms and they believe that is how they provide safety to their children, that's what they're allowed to do. That's what they elect their officials to do. If another school district, the parents say we don't want we don't want guns inside of the schools. That's what those parents elect individuals to do. That's what the school board does. That's what true freedom is, where you have a voice in this republic. You have a voice in this democracy instead of having a governor dictate to all 88 counties what is going to be done in all of the school boards. Instead, you give the individual person a vote. You give them a voice. You give them a platform where they can come and they can speak openly at school board meetings, whether it is CRT, whether it's guns in schools. The more we get people involved, the more their voices are heard, the better our society is going to be. And this is just an example of what we want to see more and more of. So allowing school boards to be able to make that decision for themselves is a good thing. Parents can make that determination for what's best for their children, and that's why I'm a supporter of the backpack bill. If you live in a school district where school districts are going to say, hey, we're going to let teachers carry guns, and you don't want that, the backpack bill, which has been proposed but has not been enacted yet, would allow you to take your child and the funding that's provided to your child and take it to another school district. If that's the reason that you want to take your child to another school district, it could be other reasons: curriculum, CRT being taught, other social issues, academics. There could be a myriad of reasons. The more freedom that an individual voter, individual resident of Ohio gets, the better for everyone. That's what we want to see here in the state of Ohio: more freedom. That's how you provide safety, because you give people choice.
And one thing I do want to know when it comes to people switching schools, and I notice there's been a trend nationwide of parents saying, look, I don't want my child, being taught CRT, when in reality, that's not something that's being taught. And it's caused a lot of teachers to leave the profession because they're feeling as if they're having a lot of pressure put on them, those added pressures, even when it comes to things like, is my district going to opt into allowing me to carry a gun in the classroom, which isn't something any districts here locally have opted to do. So I just want to note that CRT is something that's being taught more so in law school. Now, conversations regarding race and other things, it depends on the classroom and when those conversations are happening.
But
But
that's
as
not
we come,
entirely accurate, Jaden. That's not entirely accurate. So CRT
so
by
why
its
would that be the case?
yeah, so CRT by its acronym may not be taught according to what we believe in the curriculum. But what is being taught is teachers are being taught CRT in their training. They are then taking that into the classroom. And what we see is CRT being reshaped in the form of SEL, social emotional learning, which has been in the classroom for decades. And now CRT teaching is creeping into that SEL learning. So only in certain jurisdictions, only in certain curriculum, only in certain activities, and the reason it started to become a spotlight or get a spotlight shined on is because of COVID. When kids started to go home and be on Zoom, and parents are looking over the shoulder of the kid and seeing what's being taught, and they're like, I can't believe you were learning this in the classroom. Now I get to see what you're being taught. That is when it became a national spotlight. So it's not it's not as simple as it's not being taught at all. It has been proven that it's been taught to teachers in their curriculum, and it's been transitioned into the classroom in some instances. It may not be widespread. So I don't believe in some of the legislation that's been introduced here that adds in some of the divisiveness language that we see in some of the bills that have been proposed that is way too broad, that would allow school districts ban any divisive language. That's a very broad term that really could get rid of a lot of things. So I don't believe in that. But I believe in school choice. I'm a former president of a charter school. I believe parents have the right to see the curriculum that their children are being taught. And if they don't agree with what's being taught inside the classroom, they should have the ability to opt out and take their child to another school. Currently, the way that our school system works is the parents that can afford it have that choice. They can take their kid, take them to a private school, a private school. But a parent that's low income, they're held hostage. So whether it's a social issue at their school that is being driven, whether it's boys being allowed in girls' locker rooms or bathrooms and parents don't agree with that, or whether it's sports, or whether it's other guns in the classrooms with teachers, or whether it's CRT, or whether it's the way behavior is handled, or whether it's the violence level in the community, whatever the parents want to take their children out of that school and put them in private school, do. And the parents that can't afford it are left with their kids in that school district. And I mean, we see now that there's lawsuits to even take away Ed Choice scholarships. So parents need to have options. Parents need to have choice. And if you give parents the option to take their child and their tax dollars into another school district, the school district that is losing students, they're going to have to reevaluate what they're doing wrong, just like every other industry in America. They're going to have to literally sit down and analyze why they're losing their consumer. And eventually they're going to have to adjust and rebound and get their customers back. We had to do that as a charter school. If we started losing students, we had to evaluate, why are these parents leaving? Why is our student enrollment down? What can we do to get them to come back? That's what every school should be doing, not just public schools, but private schools, charter schools, academies across the board.
And I would just hope that what needs to be taught is being taught. And I don't think that we have the option. Well, I guess parents do have the option to, decide to shield their kids from the true realities of the world. But I don't think that we should have a choice in just choosing to ignore all the tough issues, because it leaves children unprepared when entering into the real world when it comes to not having those important conversations about race and the history of this country that has just been, it's complicated. I'll just leave it at that. But making it way to all those other issues that voters really do find important right now is that they're paying more at the grocery store, at the
Right.
pump. The gas prices have slowly began to fall. When it comes to addressing inflation on the state level, what exactly do you believe needs to happen?
Well, one, we need to look at our state taxes. I believe in lowering and eliminating our current income tax that we have here in the state. I believe there's a lot of things that we can do here at the state level to either mitigate or minimize the strike that we have here at the pumps and at the grocery store. Although there's a lot that affects inflation that's done at the federal level. As I've become more educated on what we can call local inflation. So we saw that with aggregate companies, mining companies that dig up, for example, gravel that we use in construction trades. There's been, a push for people to move out into the suburbs, where those companies have been doing their business for years, for decades. And as people move out in those areas, they want those businesses. It doesn't look good being in your neighborhood, so they want to push it further away. What they don't realize is, as those businesses are further away, the cost of gas is up, the cost of diesel is up. So transporting that stuff back into your community in order to build roads and bridges and construction projects, now the price of that goes up. So we can create what's called local inflation just by what we do here locally and the regulations and zonings that we do. So we want to make sure that we don't contribute towards inflation here locally. So one is reducing taxes. Two is making sure that we're spending responsibly in the state house. So we don't want to continue to suck money out of the pockets of Ohioans just to spend on essentially what we call pork, just extra spending to go back into districts to get votes. That's not what we're interested in doing. The more money that's in each individual's pockets, the better. Less government, less spending, less taxation is always better. That leads to lower inflation, and more money in the individual's pocket to do what they want to do with their own money is the solution.
We are in a challenging time in America when it comes to having that balance of wanting to make change and address these issues, but at the same time, having to spend a lot of money to do it. So
Yeah.
it's going to be something that you're going to have to approach from multiple angles. But in terms of other issues that are facing voters in your district, what do you want them to know and how you're going to deliver for them?
Sure. So I believe as a candidate, I bring a different perspective. I've been there. I've been raised by a single mother. I've been homeless. I'm a high school dropout that became disabled and laid in bed for 6 years. I dragged myself up from poverty and became a practicing attorney. I dragged myself out of that bed where I was collecting disability and could have laid on my butt for the rest of my life and barely made it. And instead, I strived to go to college and fought with the state to be able to do so. I had that victor mentality instead of victim mentality, and I saw the benefit of the programs that I was able to use to help myself. When I got that mentality to drag myself out of those situations, there were programs available to me because I was disabled. So my goal is to make sure that there's programs available for individuals that are living in poverty, people that were left behind by the natural courses of society and capitalism, to help dig themselves out of poverty, because those individuals, as they grow, are able to produce back into society, and we're going to be able to see that they can pay for the next person to be able to dig themselves out. So although it doesn't seem like the way my party is shaped in the media, that Republicans have those ideals, when I go to Columbus and I sit down with our majority leaders and I sit down with our caucus, they really are interested in those policies, and we see that we have an economy that we can build here in Ohio. For example, we see Intel that just came. We know that there's a workforce shortage here in Ohio. So we want to put together plans where there's programs that are put in place where we do vocational training guided towards the skills that they want in their workforce. So we use our social net, our social net systems, our welfare, our Medicaid, all of those programs that try to help lower income individuals that are struggling. We use those as a way to spotlight individuals that need help. We give them an avenue to be able to enroll in programs that are guided towards giving them the marketable skills to be able to transition into employment for companies like Intel and their suppliers. We want to look at programs that even will help them move into areas of Ohio where those suppliers and those employers are. And Republicans are really interested in those type of programs because it will grow the GDP here. It will give businesses the opportunity to grow. So we want to see people drag themselves out of poverty through government programs, through incentives, and we want to give businesses the incentives to grow as much as we can. We want to use those same type of incentives to help clean up the Great Lakes. We don't want to mandate that farmers do certain things. We want to give them incentives for when they want to do the right thing, that they have actual benefits and incentives that they are able to get on the back end, so they can apply for permits to be able to do water reclamation on site, and be able to get tax incentives and rebates for those type of projects. There's a lot of things that individuals want to do. There's a lot of programs. So in addition, I mean, there's not a lot of time to be able to get that across to voters when I knock on your door for the couple minutes that I'm there, or the pieces of literature that you see, or the commercials that go across. So I challenge my opponent to a debate. Nancy Larson, who won the nomination for the Democrat Party, had mentioned to me before the primary that she was interested in debating. I told her at that time, you got to worry about young Colin Flanagan, who was putting in a lot of energy into his campaign. And after the primary, that we would sit down and have that discussion. Well, she won her primary, so we issued our press release. I wrote her an email, and it's official. I officially challenge you, Nancy, to a debate where we can sit down in front of the voters and talk about these issues. I never shy away from any question. Anyone can write me an email, a Facebook post. A lot of people even have my cell phone number. You can shoot me a text. I don't shy away from any issue at any time, and we can have these debates. I'm an average guy, although I'm a practicing attorney, a college professor, and a former school board president. I ran for a reason, not because I want to have a job in Columbus, but because I thought it was selfish for me to look at God's mercy and God's grace of dragging me out of poverty and out of disability to become a successful attorney. I thought it was selfish just to go and create revenue for my family. Instead, I wanted to give back to my community like I've been doing as a youth coach for 15 years. And I believe I can do that in Columbus and bring a different perspective to the majority party that can get things done here in the state of Ohio for the residents here of Northwest Ohio.
And if that debate happens, I want Community Focus to reserve the right to air it. So I will be sure to take the right on that one. Joshua Williams, thank you so much for joining me this morning.
Thank you. I appreciate it.